titled this lecture, Marriage is a Private Affair by UH2C. In this lecture, we shall analyze Marriage is a Private Affair by African writer UH2C, and its short story is a required text for students of literature in higher education and at all educational levels. Marriage is a Private Affair was published in 1952. That is, 8 years before Nigeria gained independence under the British Empire. Like most works by UH2C, this short story can be read as a fictionalized piece of history. Thus it seems worthwhile to shed some light on the historical background of the text and its author. On UH2C. UH2C is a Nigerian novelist who was granted the honorific title Patriarch of the African Novel. Born in Nigeria in 1930, Achebe achieved a remarkable success with his first novel, Things Fall Apart, published in 1958, and which has been translated into more than 50 languages. Achebe followed with novels such as No Longer at Ease, published in 1960, Arrows of God in 1964, A Man of the People in 1966, and Anthems of the Savannah in 1987. He was also a distinguished poet. After a prosperous career, he passed away in Boston, Massachusetts in 2013. About his fiction. Marriage is a Private Affair follows in the critical wake of postcolonial studies and feminist theory, which overlap. Underneath its surface lies the Nigerian conflict between African cultures and the European colonial powers, the clash between the Western culture and the Black heritage, as well as between native traditionalists and reformists, exists ever since the Christian contact with local spirits of animist belief. The ethnic conflict, which forms the backdrop of the narrative, led to dreadful human tragedies. It has become a major concern for all anti-militarist writers, be they white or black, Christian or not. The Igbo tribe, some background. It is worth noting that UH2C belongs to the Igbo, also known as Igbo, one of Nigeria's largest ethnic groups. He is hence very closely concerned with the belief system of the native people. Commenting on what motivated him to become a writer, UH2C said, "I read some appalling European novels about Africa and realized that our story could not be told for us by anyone else." This statement echoed his eloquent aphorism in Things Fall Apart. He said, "Until the lions had their own historians, the history of the hunt would glorify the hunter." Achebe is convinced that it is quite impossible for the European to comprehend fully the nuances and subtleties of the native character. Achebe wrote Marriage is a Private Affair when he was still a student. By building a bridge between the past, the present, and the future, between the current condition and aspirational possibilities, he helped foster a contemporary view of the question of Nigerianness or Nigerianity. The complex issues of multiple identities and sense of belonging resonate throughout his writings, which deconstruct racial and gender assumptions. The Igbo society has a hybrid cultural identity, and the subtleties of this large ethno-linguistic group are hard to capture. Some Igbos believe they are descended from the lost tribes of Israel, and a number of anthropologists have drawn some parallels between the two. The British missionary George Thomas Beston, who published Among the Igbos of Nigeria in 1912, wrote, "In language, some of the idioms met with the approximate very closely to the Hebrew tongue. In Achibi's marriage as a private affair, the name borne by one of the characters, namely Jacob Nweke, an Igbo of Christian background, may well imply this Hebrew ancestry and the Jewish roots of Christianity itself." Concerning the symbolism of the title, Chinua Achebe provides us with some insight into the structure of the family within Igbo traditional society. The title of Marriage is a Private Affair conveys both polysemy and irony. There is polysemy in that the term affair has two meanings. It denotes a private matter, but also an adulterous liaison. Verbal irony contradicts its own literal meaning, that is, Igbo marriage bonds, in the context of the story, are by no means intimate, personal, private. The couple's life is publicly judged, and the societal verdict of ostracism rigorously falls against Nemeka and his beloved spouse. Weddings in Igbo land, as the Nigerian scholar Victor C. Uchendo puts it, are alliances between two families rather than a contract between two individuals. As far as the setting is concerned, the setting in Chinua Achebe's short story includes time and place in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa more specifically. Achebe's story is set in colonial Nigeria in the 20th century, and more specifically in the decade prior to independence. The presence of a city street stands in stark contrast with the rural landscapes. The twofold setting paves the way for the larger theme of culture clash. The two geographical spaces described by Chinua Achebe exist but do not coexist smoothly. The agrarian culture is symbolized by the village and its old cults and customs, while the urban society is epitomized by the city of Lagos, Nigeria's leading city. The physical setting of Marriage is a Private Affair is Nigeria. The love relationship between the two protagonists, Nene Atang and her fiancé, Nemeka, is set in the large city of Lagos. More specifically, it is located in a room at 16 Kasanga Street. A setting shift occurs when Nemeka decides to return to his father's home. The narrative then changes to an Igbo village in rural Nigeria, and this will necessarily have an impact on the series of stages through which events evolve. Modernists tend to manipulate perspectives and settings to help the reader gain a better insight into the plot. When a setting shift occurs, the reader gets the impression that the information provided in the story has various points of view. Modernists question the univocal dimensionality of the truth and knowledge. Linear thinking in a non-linear world sounds paradoxically illogical to some. Others believe it is possible, though unlikely. Inserting time in Marriage is a Private Affair, the reader is not given a specific period and can only assume it is a modern scenery. A subtle clue is hinted at by Chinua Achebe to suggest time, namely, the epistolary exchange involved. The story presumably takes place before the advent of the digital era. Thereby, the reader may legitimately infer that the action is situated in the mid-20th century, over a life cycle of 8 years, between Nene's singlehood and motherhood. Nene's matrimonial and maternal experience is a period marking the passing of time and the succession of generations. Weather conditions as part of the setting. Chinua Achebe projects his states of mind onto the weather as a means to reflect the floating moods of his fluctuating characters. As a figure of speech, pathetic fallacy was frequently used by romantic writers. It is the attribution of human responses to inanimate objects of nature. For instance, when Nemeka's father receives a letter from Nene requesting a family gathering, Achebe provokes a sudden change in the weather and thus operates a transition from nature to sensations. He says, "Very soon it began to rain, the first rain in the year. It came down in large sharp drops and was accompanied by the lightning and thunder, which marked the change of season. Okiki was trying hard not to think of his 2 grandsons, but he knew he was now fighting a losing battle. He tried to hum a favorite hymn, but the pattering of large raindrops on the roof broke up the tune. His mind immediately returned to the children." End of the quotation. Nemeka's meeting with his father takes place, Achebe tells us, when the parching December sun had set and the fresh reviving wind blew on the leaves. Figuratively, since it marks a new dawn, this merging moment symbolizes the dissipation of the shadows of the onset between Okiki and Nemeka. By standing in the light, the sun heroically faces the dimness of the dead heritage, letting in new values. He is now firmly convinced that only light can dispel the dark. Point of view. The short story is told in third-person omniscience, which was the standard perspective for most 19th century novels. As an Igbo writer, endowed with the mission of transmission, just like African storytellers in the oral tradition, Achebe writes from an insider's point of view. This is how he conceives his literary vocation. He said, "It is only the story that can continue beyond the war and the warrior. It is the story that outlives the sound of war drums and the exploits of brave fighters. It is the story, not the others, that saves our progeny from blundering like blind beggars in the spikes of the cactus fence. The story is our escort. Without it, we are blind. Does the blind man own his escort? No. Either do we, the story. Rather, it is a story that owns us and directs us. It is the thing that makes us different from cattle. It is the mark on the face and sets one people apart from their neighbors." Quoted in Chinua Achebe's novel, and Tales of the Savannah. As for the plot, structure, Marriage is a Private Affair narrates the passion of a couple who broke away from social constraints to celebrate love in their own way. The young man of Igbo origins. The young man is of Igbo origins, while his beloved is not. Nene wants Nemeka to write a letter to his father to announce their marriage, to which the native man objects, as he properly anticipates that his father has traditionally chosen an Igbo or Igbo bride for him. Instead, he prefers to embark on a voyage to enlighten his father in the flesh. Now, the conflict in Chinua Achebe's Marriage is a Private Affair. There is a cultural and generational conflict between father and son. Achebe illustrates this gap, depicting the moral dilemma between Nemeka and Okiki. The son transcends the traditional Igbo custom by proposing to Nene without his father's consent. As an adult, he rejects guardianship, whether parental or tribal. In so doing, he becomes the advocate of modernity and the author's persona. Between the unquestionable law of the father and the wisdom of the village and of the ancestors, the overlapping voices of the author and his protagonist, Nemeka, are brought in to mediate. As usual, the truth lies midway between the extremes of right and wrong. Ultimately, I will conclude with some of the major thematic concerns contained in Chinua Achebe's Marriage is a Private Affair. The first theme is the entanglement of past and present. Achebe is telling us that Nigerians are engulfed by their past, which prevents them from living life to the fullest. Humans are overburdened by the accumulation of the magnified heritage. He pleads in favor of more progressive, more liberal values. To keep the living things, one needs to let go of the dead ones. Superstitions is also a major theme in the short story. Okiki's neighbor, Mad Bogu, recommends that Okiki be cured by the native doctor or herbalist of the village to regain his son's affection. Superstitious rituals are so deeply ingrained in the villagers' culture. Nevertheless, as George Thomas Basden remarked, the people are intensely religious. A casual observer might pronounce them superstitious, but the fact is, the belief in the spiritual exercises a profound influence over every detail of their lives. Quoted in George T. Basden, The Geographical Journal. All the aspects of the Igbo world, whether material, spiritual, and socio-cultural, are made intelligible to them by their myths, cosmology, and religion. African Gnosis reveals how everything came into being and encodes the Igbo world view. Igbo superstitions are thus a way through which people have been defining themselves over time and have reinvented their identity today. In that respect, Marriage is a Private Affair conveys valuable information about Igbo philosophy, culture, social organization, architecture, history, and geography. Thank you very much for your attention. Blessed be.